Alrighty, everyone. Welcome to day 4 of the Realign with the Divine Challenge. We're here today with Becky. Becky, do you want to introduce yourself? Tell us a little about you, what you do.
Sure. Thank you for having me. And yeah, I do a lot of different things. So I do a lot of work with cacao, which is a heart-opening plant medicine, ceremonies, different kinds of in-person events and day retreats, offering mentorship and virtual workshops, and really in the arena of the healing arts and just helping, for the most part, women kind of come back into their own sacred feminine, because we need more of that. And that's our most empowered place to be.
I was actually thinking about that so much today, and just like how there just needs to be a cultural shift. Like, I feel like women need to like want to be empowered to be feminine again. I feel like we've kind of like grown up in this society where like maybe it was safer for us to be tapped into our masculine, but then we feel like really burnt out or like purposeless. Um, and I know that you had an experience like working in corporate America for a long time. So like what were some of the ways that you kind of started shifting more into your feminine energy and out of like that more masculine space?
Yeah, I did spend about 15 years in corporate America. And when I left, I was absolutely burnt out, exhausted. And I probably did. And that was in 2020 when I left. And it wasn't really until like 2022 that I was really putting it together of like, okay, I'm really in the masculine. And that's just wounded patterns. That's how we're conditioned as women to show up and operate for, like you said, our own survival. It's how we conform and fit in, and like just tying into like the good girl archetype and the people pleaser and all that comes with it. And it was really when I started getting into my body more, getting into embodiment practices and like specifically dance, that started unlocking a lot. And when I started sitting with cacao very regularly on a near daily basis, that unlocked an incredible amount. It just like opened the heart. And it helps us balance our masculine and feminine energies, but it's also known as, mama cacao. It has a very mothering, nurturing quality to it and allows us to really drop into our softness. And that's when it really started hitting me of like, okay, like there's so much rigidity in my body and so much like moving from a place of like logic and structure beyond what is really necessary, in my personal opinion, for someone desiring to be in the sacred feminine. Yeah. Yep. So it was like just slowly, but also kind of rapidly when I look back, like making these shifts, just wanting to feel less dense, wanting to feel more in flow. And it was kind of a little bit later into the journey that I was realizing, like, oh, I'm getting back to my own sacred feminine, like really tapping into my divinity. And it's nice to have the language because a lot of women, we like don't yet. We're just used to operating the way that we always have. So to have the empowered language is really a gift. And I find it to be like quite different than, traditional feminism, which still operates, I think, a lot in the masculine energy. And this is just sort of a coming home to our natural state and really being able to embody that and be the sacred structure for our feminine to flourish and flow.
Yeah, I completely agree with what you say. I feel like I used to identify as a feminist, but I feel like it almost like allows or it calls us to step up into this like patriarchal structure of like work 5 days a week, and it doesn't really create any space for like the feminine, which is like on a 28-day cycle. Like we show up different every single day, and in learning to honor that, we actually like kind of tap into our own divinity of realizing like there's times when I have superpowers, there's times when my superpower is rest, you know, like, and honoring those cycles within ourselves. And like I feel like we kind of, I was reading this in a book, so this isn't my own thought, but it was talking about how for centuries and centuries, like ancient civilizations had always honored like the ancient mother along with the ancient father. You know, they hold two dualistic places. And in recent times, or like, you know, within the past few 100,000 or 100 or 1,000 years, we've shifted to like only like religion is based around just like a very like father, like distant father figure. And it's like we all have kind of grown up to like not really like nourish ourselves and like be able to accept love and to be able to like give love, or like have like a weird idea of like what love even is. And it's just interesting that to think about. But I feel like you use kind of cacao to connect with that ancient mother, that like very nourishing heartfelt energy. So like what are some ways that like you work with cacao? Like when you sit with cacao, what's your kind of like routine?
So my go-to sort of ritual with cacao is, like I make it, obviously. And that in itself, like a lot of people want to rush through that process, but that's part of the intention of it. It's part of the ritual is like slowing down, which again is like another feminine quality, and just being present and like putting your love and care into preparing the cacao. It takes about 15 minutes for me to just make a single serving for myself, and I just let it be. If I don't have time to prepare it in an intentional way, it's like then I don't need to be sitting with it right now. So it really starts with the moment of like choosing to engage in making it as a ritual. So I'll do that. Um, right now, because it's nice out, I'm really enjoying going into the forest. I have like a really lovely ceremony space that I go to, and I usually bring my drum, light up some sage, get the vibes going, and I will do kind of like a four directions prayer with the cacao. That's kind of how I like to start it for the most part. Depending on energy, sometimes I'll do a little bit of a shorter one, speaking like intentions into the cacao. Like it's really such an intelligent medicine, and the wisdom in it is so potent. It's like, and it's true for really anything going in our bodies. That's why when we eat or drink, it's like we want to pray over our food or speak intention into it, because that's literally what we're consuming. So always coming with an intention. It doesn't have to be anything like over the top. It could just be like, I want to be present in this moment. I just want to feel, you know, open-hearted, or share your wisdom with me, like, or I want to be more connected to nature or tap into my creativity, whatever the thing might be. And it's really a creative thing. It gives a lot of physical sensations and really like opens up. It is a vasodilator, so it's getting the blood pumping in our bodies, getting more oxygen to our brain. So we're feeling very open and uplifted quite physically. So there's like the emotional and the physical aspects to it. So as that's kind of setting in, like that starts to take you on its own journey. And the two, I don't want to say two, but I'll just stick with the two. Like there's so much to happen. Um, I'll usually do drumming and singing or get into movement. Those are probably like the top two things. Sometimes I'll go into like a writing kind of journaling thing, but I would say really bringing out that more expressive side. It's so opening. Like for me, the expression and creativity and like combining them and letting them out, even just with myself, had been such a challenge in the past, and having like a decent amount of like performance wounding and all of that to kind of untangle. It's like the cacao just comes in and is like, everything's fine. Like you totally got this, and like you're so held. And it really is in such a motherly energy. It is so nurturing. And sometimes people are like, what does that even mean? And it's sort of one of those things you have to experience for yourself. Just like have a cup of cacao and really sit with it from an energetic perspective. Because it's one thing to have the intention of drinking it for its physical benefits. It is a superfood, so it's just excellent for our bodies, no matter what way we want to take it in. And then there is the more spiritual and energetic part of it, which is really like I'm very much into the energetics of cacao. I noticed tons of physical benefits from drinking it, but that's not why I got into it. Um, and just tapping into my own inner mother and being able to hold my own heart in a way that maybe I didn't have from other people, or couldn't maybe even call it in from other people because I wasn't yet doing it for myself. So there was just a huge softening and lots of crying, honestly. So much crying out things of the past have happened with cacao. And what I love, I'm just like a huge crier anyways. I just like love it. With cacao, it kind of takes the edge off. We want to like not express ourselves in that way. It's like very vulnerable and intimate. And cacao just kind of sweeps in and holds our heart in such a precious and gentle way that it's like, yeah, it's okay to like cry your tears. It's okay to feel this grief or the sorrow or these deep emotions and let them kind of pass through the body. Because what's left after we sort of process that and clear it out of our heart space is just the love. So it's really an alchemist for whatever we're holding in the heart. You don't even really have to have the intention of clearing that out. Like it will just do it. It will happen. Like if you keep sitting with cacao, like I didn't really know what to expect. When I started sitting with cacao, I was just like so heartbroken from everything in my life was just falling apart. And all of these plans, right? Like bring back to the masculine. Like I had all of these plans. I'm like, yes, this is what's going to happen. This is where life is going. And I'm going to make this happen. Like come hell or high water. The universe was kind of like, no, I actually don't think you're going to do any of that. And so it just was like falling through my fingers like sand. Like I couldn't hold on if I wanted to. And so it was just having to release and like let it go. And when I decided to sit with cacao, I was just in a total state of grief, of letting everything go. And I was like, I don't know what else to do, but I'm kind of just here with myself and desperate really for relief. I'm like, I need to do something because I don't want to suffer. I don't want to be in that. Like I have suffered enough and been in that cycle enough. Like it's time to come out of it. And, at first I didn't really know how that was going to happen, but just in remember, just kind of like dropped in those intuitive nudges that we follow of like, hey, like you should really check out like the ceremonial cacao again. Like maybe just sit with it and see what happens. Like people are doing it. I don't know. Let's go for it. And it's really been like a heart opening, heart healing journey, like incredibly profound and so transformational. Like I feel like a completely different person and it's great. I love it.
That's just such a magical story. And I just feel like it's so powerful, but also I feel like so many of us can relate to like coming to that point in our lives where we're just like, okay, this has to be like the bottom because I can't get any lower, like, and just being like desperate for any sort of relief, like trying anything we could get our hands on. And I think that's how a lot of us come to this more like spiritual understanding. I mean, that paired with like listening to our intuition, dropping into the voice of our body and asking it like what it needs, it's screaming at us, giving us all these messages with emotions and anxiety and depression and like tension and pain and all of these like constriction, you know, it's communicating to us that we need to address something deeper, but I feel like we don't always really have the language or the understanding of like the steps to get there, you know. And so I'm feeling inspired to sit more with cacao myself. Like, it sounds really good right now, actually.
I highly recommend it. I just feel like everyone should do it. It's great, and it really does give that just beautiful feeling of bliss, that high on life. And that's such a gift, especially if there's anyone out there that's like sober or in recovery. Like, this is a really great plant medicine. It's very supportive of alcohol replacements, coffee replacements, getting off any kind of other substances like cacao really holds us through that.
Mhm. Yeah, Mackenzie, can you share a little bit about like your experience with cacao and working with the heart chakra?
Yeah, so I first like I'm a chocolate lover anyway, so I was like chocolate, 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 the darkest, yeah, give it to me. And then I somehow stumbled across like a cacao like training, but it was more just like for like personal kind of thing, just explorative, like get you to get introduced with the plant medicine and stuff like that. And loved it, was on it. Like so many things opened up for me, like energetically too. And I like how you said it to Becky, that it's like a motherly energy. It really is. And it's like the mother you never had. Like even if you did have an awesome mother, like it's just like it just holds you in a way that no other human can, like human energy can, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
Um, and it's funny because like I've been traveling for a few months, well, not anymore, but like back from like October to like March, I didn't have any cacao, and I was starting to notice it like probably, well, actually I was like noticing it like 2 days after I didn't have my cacao. I was like, all right, gotta get some cacao. Went a few months without like not sitting with it or drinking with it, got it again. And now that I've been sitting it with it for like a month now, like it's cool to see the shifts and changes, like from when I am drinking it daily to when I'm not. And I've started to, like, I was a coffee drinker too, and so I started supplementing that out for like making cacao first thing in the morning. And it also is like a good way to start the day. And how you said it's an intention, it's like a commitment to be like, all right, I'm drinking cacao. It's not like, okay, I'm going to mix it together, sip my hot chocolate kind of thing. Like it's something beyond that. Like it's something physical that helps get you into those higher states of awareness.
Mhm.
I actually did how fast. I definitely don't recommend this to anybody, but it was just like something, like it was the plant honestly who called to me. She was like, you are going to drink cacao for the whole day with water, no food, nothing else. And I was like, okay, whatever, just listen to that. Didn't really like notice anything throughout the day, but then 3:30 in the morning hit, and all of a sudden I was like up, had all of this crazy energy going on, not really sure what was happening. And then I'm like, got in my head, I was like, oh shit, like what if I drink too much cacao? Like my body's like being all crazy, like going crazy. And then I was like, okay, all I heard was surrender. And I was in Guatemala at the time, like in the land, like, so that was also, I think it was, the message was very clear and potent. So I just surrendered. And all of a sudden I just felt this like huge wave of like that motherly love, that energy, like rush over my body. And it was like I was taking on the frequency of the plant. And my story, it sounds like I'm going through like a psychedelic experience kind of thing, but it's not like that at all. It was just more of like an internal processing of the things that I have gone through and what I was about to go through kind of thing. But it's just like, it felt like my heart was opening and all of these layers were shedding and shedding and shedding. And I was buzzing. And then the next morning, it was like, people looked at me, they're like, are you okay? And I was like, yeah, I think I just have like a cacao hangover though. Like I got blasted with downloads, with like I literally up leveled in frequency within like 24 hours, and my body just didn't know what to do. So and then I just was like dead for the next day after that. But then I was like, all right, like this plant medicine, and I have a hard time almost using plant medicine, but it is. But for people who aren't, or who are like new to like the spiritual journey or anything about this, I don't want to like scare them away from saying plant medicine, because it's not like ayahuasca or, something like crazy psych like that. It's, you can drink it daily. It's like coffee, but it's more of like the intention and that it brings to you and your daily life.
I feel
That
like
was a lot.
both of your experiences like make a lot of sense, with the heart chakra where it's placed in our energetic system. It really is like that balancing point where we're like taking an input from our upper chakras and like also like taking an input from the earth, like right there at the heart. And when the heart is blocked, like we don't have that channel of like taking in those downloads, but also like connecting to the love that's right in front of us, because like we're so confused about like what love is supposed to look like, or maybe we like have grief, or we have like pain, disappointment, all of this like blocking us from actually like being in our bodies and experiencing the beauty all around us. Like I don't sit with cacao that much, but I can resonate with opening my heart and realizing that like, holy cow, like everything is so beautiful, like I'll just cry like listening to a song or like driving down the road, like it doesn't take much anymore. It's like colors are brighter and like things are exciting, and I don't feel so rigid and like closed up and just like shut down from like everything. When we open our heart, we like expand our whole entire energy system. We allow ourselves to like grow in all directions, up, down, side to side, take in, accept, receive. And I feel like, do either of you have any other practice other than cacao that you use for heart opening, or would you say that cacao is like your go-to heart opener? Yeah, that's my question.
I feel like that's probably the main one. Yeah, in that way, because cacao, it like opens the portal to the heart. And so from there, it's like everything else is just kind of flowing.
Christy was
Yeah, I
wondering
was gonna.
if anyone has a good source also, and I'm now also wondering who's got the source on
Yeah,
cacao.
I have a few good I can share in the Facebook group too. I'm sure Becky, you do as well.
Mm-hmm. I do.
Becky, we should sit together sometime by a river.
Yeah,
Just playing it.
for sure.
I would really enjoy that.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, well, I skipped our like opening question, so maybe this would be a good time to ask, like, how do you align with the divine other than, cacao? Because I feel like we talked about that a lot. What are some other practices that you have that make you feel like really aligned with the divine within you?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I have kind of I guess a morning devotion practice. So I wake up at 5:30 in the morning, just because that seems like a good time for me to wake up. And I have three non-negotiables, which are morning pages, three free flow, stream of consciousness journal pages. Like as soon as I wake up, I do that. I do some movement, and then I am meditating. And so that is like my morning alignment, I guess I would say. There is like nothing else happens in my life until those three things are complete. And it's a really nice ritual to anchor into, and kind of does help me align with myself, with the divine. It sets the tone for the day. And it's just like anything from the previous day just gets kind of like washed away. You can process it through pages, through movement, through meditation. Um, and then usually like getting out into nature is something that's happening on a daily basis. And that's just like a real gift to be able to connect in that way as well. Those are like my main sources.
I love that. I think that like that self-reflection and that self-awareness of like our inner world really does like start at the heart, you know, like when we can begin to like understand our own internal world, that's kind of like our link to understanding everyone. And like when we can be compassionate with our own selves, you know, that's kind of like the gateway of being able to be compassionate to those around us, whether we love them or, you know, we're not feeling as resonant with their energies. Just like holding that's yogini space of compassion for all really
Yeah.
starts with like creating that space for yourself in the morning to connect with your own self and your own practices. Mackenzie, I realized I didn't let you answer, and that was so rude of me. So, what are some of your other practices for opening your heart?
Dancing, just putting on like a good song and just like going outside or inside, but just allowing my body to like move wherever it wants to move without any expectations or like judgments of the self. And sometimes it can get pretty wacky if it's like stuck energy in there. But that's what like the beauty of it too, just letting it unfold. Like, okay, what am I feeling and how does this want to move through me as well? And I mean nature, like that's the best way for me, literally just lying flat on the ground on my belly or hugging a tree and just like feeling that exchange from my heart space to that being's heart space, wherever a tree's heart lives. Just like imagine it, yeah, just exchanging energy with something in nature.
Yeah.
And I do have a question for you, Becky. So like when you've started your healing journey and you've like worked through your heart stuff and your mind stuff and you feel like you're pretty like you've got a good, and maybe I don't now that I'm thinking about this, but like so like I've been struggling like trying to decide like if it's my heart telling me I need to do something or if it's my mind. And like I feel like I've gotten to that point where I'm like, okay, like usually like I just ask the question and it's that I'll know right away, but lately there's been this weird like dance between my mind and heart, and I'm like, okay, is this like my ego just like trying to keep me safe, or is my heart trying to like get me out of that comfort zone so that I can actually receive what I've desired?
I receive that. I can so resonate with being in that place. What I learned and like what people don't want to hear is that if there is that kind of like inner conflict, it's like do nothing. Because when we are moving from our heart space, and especially when we're like aligning with our sacred feminine, that battle is the ego. And something isn't quite right. So it's not to say that like the thing's not going to happen or not whatever. It's just like maybe that's like not the right moment or not the right time, or the ego needs to kind of sort itself out. When I was in my heart healing process, I literally just no was baseline. Everything was a no because I couldn't even discern what was like a true heart-centered yes. So I'm like, well, everything's a no now. Like, and by doing that and really anchoring into that and just holding like a really large space for the sacred yes, because it got to a point where I had recognized part of my position was, or where I had gotten myself was because I was sort of just like saying yes to things that weren't really like a full-bodied, heartfelt yes. So just like no. And when you just say no to everything, even when it seems like a great idea, the yeses start to get really clear. And you notice that the mind chatter is just like, that's a no. A maybe is a no. And I don't know is a no. And sometimes no's turn into yeses later, but it's always like slow is fast. Like that's the thing. That's one of the things I've learned from this whole journey of like, there's no rush. There's really nowhere to go. No decisions really have to be made that are like that urgent. Our brain thinks that like things have to happen immediately, and it's just like a huge slowing down of like, no, I'm just going to be here because I trust the heart that when the time is right, it's just like that. And there was this knowing that drops in, and there's just no question to it, because you'll start acting, like you'll do the thing versus doing the dance within.
That's really good advice. I feel like I needed that advice too, and I didn't even ask for it.
I love it.
All sisters.
Well, it looks like we are running a little bit out of time. So I wanted to create some space for any last words. Christy, is there anything that you want to say or any questions that you got? Have?
If I can figure out how to unmute. Hi, thank you so much for your share, Rebecca. That was so great. I'm sorry I missed the first bit of it. But you actually made me pause and realize that when I sat with cacao in Costa Rica is when I actually integrated with my 14-year-old self, who was like, we're not doing that lots of times prior. And yeah, and I just realized how connected it was. Because when I came in late, I'm like, okay, so how does this connect to heart space, right? And then I'm like just reviewing my experience with cacao, and it was just a really lovely awareness to have. So thank you. Yeah, and I really liked how you said, gosh, what did you say about, oh, so then I was dancing and I was hot, and I actually got too hot, and I felt like too caffeinated for a second, and I drink coffee religiously at this point, if I'm just honest. But so it was really nice for you to talk about crying with it, because I'm such a crier. I'm super emotional, but that I feel like sounds heartwarming, to be quite honest. So yeah, thank you so much. This was really lovely.
Oh,
you're
okay.
welcome. Yeah, thank you, Christy, for that share.
Yeah.
So Becky, I want to also create some space for any last words from you, and some space for you to promote your upcoming offers that you have going on.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, this was really wonderful to get to talk about the heart and cacao, which is just like known as being a heart opening agent. It really is transformational. To sit with her and just allow her to kind of sweep through our lives and open our hearts and help us get in the body, into our emotions. Highly recommend. And there's so many things that could be said about cacao. It's like we don't have time for all of it. And I do just want to say too, like, this is not like woo woo. This is all science backed information as well as to why we have certain reactions and effects with cacao. And so it's like such a gift to share on that. And if it feels aligned, I truly do encourage everyone to try that out. I have, yeah, lots of upcoming things. Manifesting generator here. So I have all sorts of different events coming up. I have a virtual workshop this Sunday. It's called the Code of Pleasure, which is all about helping women get into their sacred feminine so they can like manifest their dreams through movement and really like tapping into their bodies and channeling that energy. Let's see, I have some cacao ceremonies and meditations coming up in person in Connecticut. So if anybody is here in the area, all of that information is listed through like my social media links. I don't know if you want, I can give that to you and you can share that. And I'm also happy to share with you, I have some different links for cacao if people are interested. And I also do sell a brand called Cacao Soul, which is the brand that I use for my personal practice. And it's currently my go-to brand for all of my ceremonies as well. So yeah, I will leave it there because I know we're short on time.
Well, thank you so much. Mackenzie, do you have any other last words in our final minute?
Not that I can think of, no. Thank you so much for coming up and speaking from the heart.
Yeah, thank you, ladies, for having me. It's such a joy to be here with you and kind of get to chat about all of this.
Yes, so fun, Becky. I'm so happy that this was able to work in your schedule, and I just feel like this was such potent wisdom shared. And yeah, so if y'all are watching the replay, you can comment below, and we'll get link you to Becky. We'll post her links in the Facebook group, and let us know if you have any questions or anything that really came up for you as you watch this.